Well, here's what we got on our lineup on this Wednesday. A plan to give tens of thousands of dialysis patients new options isn't going into effect as expected. What advocates say needs to happen first. And many experts hope that ride-hailing apps would reduce congestion on our roads. We're going to talk about why they may not be achieving that goal. And credit card debt hitting a new record high. The thing that's making us carry a balance that may surprise you. And we're getting advice from a woman who paid off more than $120,000 worth of debt.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome to the Now Indy. It is a Storm Team 6 alert day. As we look over Indianapolis, we got some cold rain and even some freezing rain and sleet in the mix, but it's all about where you are here across the state. We've got some snow to the north and a cold rain to the south, so those temperatures very important, sitting just above the freezing mark right now in Indianapolis, but right at 32 degrees in Kokomo, and reporting some light snow there. Here's a look at satellite and radar, and you can see we've got that rain-snow line along and just north of I-70. You can see some snow continuing around Lafayette into Muncie, Cicero as well. And then we see southern portions of Putnam County, even southern portions of Marion County dealing with rain. You go to the northern portion of those counties, though, and we got a little more of that wintry mix with some snow. Same for you around Connorsville and Richmond, where it's a cold rain, into Seymour and Bedford. Those temperatures a little bit warmer. Here's a look at TrueCast, and as we go through tonight, we are going to see that rain-snow line lifting to the north before some more snow showers work their way through here into tomorrow morning. Could see about 1 to 2 inches of snow along I-70, about 2 to 4 to the north. Amanda?
Thanks, Kyle. Tonight, a local fire department is making a commitment to keep students safe. The White River Township Fire Department has now moved into its new headquarters in Greenwood. The move is due to the I-69 project plan for Johnson County. RTV6's Nicole Griffin is finding out how the fire department is now building a partnership with local schools.
We want to be with our schools. We want to be accessible to the community.
Standing inside the new White River Township Fire Department headquarters, Fire Chief Jeremy Pell says this new location serves a bigger purpose. It marks a new partnership to help protect nearby students.
We all have a concern in our society about a school being a potential target for somebody that wants to do harm. And if we're right here, front and center, with the police car in the fire station, the sheriff's office having a place here, the school police is always welcome, is a game changer. And it's a deterrent.
The headquarters includes Fire Station 53 and a substation for the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. It's located in front of Center Grove Middle School North and Pleasant Grove Elementary School.
We want the schools to know that we are right here when all those kids are here during the day to take care of their every need, and we think that's a good model for the community.
The fire chief tells me this all comes down to cutting down response times, which essentially saves lives. If there is an emergency at Center Grove Middle School North or at Pleasant Grove Elementary School, firefighters can be there in just minutes.
As a parent, I love the idea of, of us being so close. A quick response time in our profession, in the real world, is a lifesaver.
The fire department has also trained with nearby police and fire agencies. They are using other shootings across the country, like the one in Noblesville, as an example of how important it is to be prepared.
We have actually trained together, not just active shooter incidents and violent incidents, but also any type of mass casualty or large fire event. We are operating similar to one large fire department.
Chief Pell says the new station also has several benefits for the firefighters, including an upstairs living quarters, the department's first ever fire pole, and a room to isolate gear with an exhaust system. It's a practice to help prevent cancer in the fire service.
Oh gosh, we are so excited. We are so blessed, and the entire community, to have this facility.
The old Fire Station 53, located near State Road 37 and Smith Valley Road, will eventually be demolished as construction begins on the I-69 project next year. Working for you in Johnson County, Nicole Griffin, RTV6.
And the new White River Township Fire Department headquarters was fully paid for by INDOT. Federal law allows the state to replace any publicly owned building like a fire station that must be relocated due to a construction project. Construction on the I-69 project in Johnson County is expected to start in 2021.
There is hope that the coronavirus epidemic may be slowing down. The National Health Commission found the number of new cases has been trending down over the past few days. But the CDC says it may be optimistic to think that cases are peaking. The UN Health Emergencies Chief says it's just way too early to predict the beginning of the end of the China outbreak. Now, a study from China's National Health Commission suggests the incubation period could be as long as 24 days. The CDC says it still thinks 14 days is the best length of time to quarantine someone. Well, let's start the Now News feed. GPS, it is a vital part of our lives, and the Trump administration plans to test just how vulnerable our infrastructure would be in an outage. Of course, GPS used for weather forecasting, power grids, financial services, and on top of all of that, smartphone apps. Well, BP setting an environmental goal. The company wants to become carbon neutral by 2050. It made that announcement, but didn't really say how it plans to make it happen. Ford is recalling more than 240,000 vehicles. It's over a suspension problem. The recall is for the Flex and Taurus models and the Lincoln MKT. The model years are 2013 to 2018. Government agencies are intercepting food safety issues more and putting out recalls in a timely fashion, but there's still a disconnect in getting the information to the public. Now a consumer watchdog group is calling out grocery stores for not doing enough.
Corporations talk about their responsibility in the communities, and grocery stores play a vital role in the communities across the nation. And so they can be good stewards and help protect the health of their shoppers.
The U.S. Public Interest Research Group asked nearly 30 of the largest grocery stores in the country how they notify customers about recalls. Most didn't respond or failed to adequately inform the public. A few chains got passing grades. U.S. PIRG says that more can be done besides pulling recalled food, like posting signs on store shelves and at cash registers.
So it's much more useful if you tell someone the beef that might still be in your freezer could have salmonella in it and you should go check, then we're out of ground beef for a little bit, come back next week. One will get someone to check their freezer and the other will leave someone potentially eating dangerous food.
The consumer group says that stores have shoppers' information through loyalty programs. They could use that for recall notifications through email or text messages, as well as post notifications on store websites. Now let's get back to our lineup here. Still ahead, a plan to give tens of thousands of dialysis patients new options isn't going into effect as expected. What advocates say needs to happen first.
Back to the Now Indy on RTV6. You're taking a look at our live drive. That's on US 31, driving on the north side of Carmel. We are starting to see snow on the road, so if you're heading out on the roads or know someone who is, drive a little bit more slowly out there and be cautious. We will have a look at our forecast coming up with Kyle Mounts. President Donald Trump's proposed 2021 budget would cut funding for many federal social agencies, including a grant program that Indianapolis organizations use to better the community. The proposed budget calls for the elimination of community development block grants. Indianapolis distributes the federal grant money for things like the demolition of unsafe structures, summer youth programs, and employment training. A recipient of some of that grant money is the John Boehner Center on Indy's east side. The center used grant money to help convert the second floor of its facility into classroom space, where it now offers high school equivalency classes. Today, a center representative said the community would be hurt if those grants were discontinued.
Perhaps when you're sitting in an office in Washington, D.C., that might be a little bit removed from really being on the ground and seeing the people that we work with every day that we're able to use these funds to help.
Trump's proposal is still unlikely to pass, as Congress usually exercises its ability to simply ignore it and draft their own budget. But the proposal gives a snapshot of the Trump administration's priorities and wish list for next year. Here are a few other proposed cuts from Trump's proposed 2021 budget. It calls for cutting money to schools that have federal property in their tax zone. A handful of Indiana schools received $780,000 in makeup tax money in 2018. The budget also calls for an end to the reimbursement program for law enforcement agencies that detain people in the country illegally. Marion County received $122,000 from the program last year, and it calls for cutting special college financial aid for people with very low incomes. Chris.
The Trump administration is putting major kidney care reforms on hold. The plan looks to increase transplants and treatment at home. Doctors and dialysis centers could face financial penalties if they don't meet certain standards for how many patients use home dialysis. Now, that's where the proposals faced pushback.
We are hoping that this model will be implemented at some point. We certainly don't want any kind of penalties to interfere with patient choice.
The National Kidney Foundation requested an 18-month grace period before enforcing penalties. That would allow time for infrastructure changes like more home health care nurses and patient education so they can make empowered decisions. Now, the foundation says if we don't do something now, by 2030, we'll have 1 million people who are receiving dialysis. Now, that's part of the reason they support the initiative as a whole.
The whole thing is really comprehensive because it's trying to increase awareness of kidney disease, so patients are going to be more likely to get screened and treated if there's increased awareness of kidney disease. And then if they do develop kidney failure, to let them know that there's not just an option of dialysis in a center.
President Trump signed the executive order to advance kidney care last July. The plan was supposed to take effect January 1st. A new study finds adults unintentionally make it easier for kids to eat pills. CDC reports more than 50% of kids that got into prescription medication did it after an adult already took it out of a child-resistant container. Now, sometimes the pills were put into an organizer or left on a counter. There are about 400,000 poison center calls and 50,000 ER visits every year for kids eating medication when adults aren't looking. All right, we have more to get to on our lineup. Many experts hope that ride-hailing apps will reduce congestion on the road. We're going to talk about why they may not be achieving that goal. Let's start the Now News feed. Robots are better than brokers. In a new study done by the University of Indiana, researchers found that robot analysts made better stock recommendations than humans. Speaking of robots, they could be the future of the food industry. A new TD Bank study says around 65% of food franchise owners think that automation will have a big impact on the industry. The study specifically looking at self-service kiosks and mobile apps. Rihanna's lingerie brand accused of deceptive marketing. Truth in Advertising filed a complaint with the FTC against Savage X Fenty. The complaint says the company advertises discounts without saying you have to have a membership. Unilever says it is changing the way it markets food, drinks, and ice cream to kids, citing growing concerns over childhood obesity. Now, by the end of the year, the company will no longer target kids under 12 with traditional ads or kids under 13 on social media. It will also limit the use of cartoon characters. Changes will apply to all of its products, including Ben & Jerry's and Klondike. Marijuana can lead to impairment, affecting the ability to drive, putting people at risk of accidents and injuries. And we may just be starting to understand how it could affect the body if someone goes to the hospital.
Patients who come in with the same type of injury, the same age, if you match them one by one, and the only difference between the two is marijuana use, what we're seeing is that those patients actually have more days in the intensive care unit. They're staying on the ventilator longer. They have an increased risk of death of about 5% versus those that aren't.
An Arizona trauma surgeon talking about what they're learning as they treat more patients that use marijuana. Essentially, they're taking longer to recover and have an increased risk of death. The hospital planning outreach and education efforts in areas where the majority of people who are using marijuana are getting hurt are coming from. Now, parents in a Brooklyn neighborhood are turning their everyday activities into an interactive lesson. Right now, Learning Landscapes takes place in 2 grocery stores. Signs posted around the store urge parents to engage with their children with conversational prompts like, say, find the biggest apple in the bunch.
What really sparked this effort was the insight that families are left out of the planning tables and decision-making tables when resources do come into a community.
The program hopes to expand to other languages and also barbershops, hair salons, and even bus stops.
All right, some of you this evening are saying, want snow. They are not saying that in Westfield. This is where our live drive is right now. Jake Weller behind the wheel, and this is 156th Street. You can see snow covered there, and that does include the roadways as well. So especially as you work your way north of Indianapolis this evening, gonna need to take it slow. That's going to be the case into tomorrow morning as well. Even visibility in the Lafayette area around 1/4 mile, and we've got reports of snow mixing with some of that freezing rain on the west side of the city. So you can see on the satellite and the radar here, we got a little bit of everything going on. Mainly snow north of Indianapolis and mainly a cold rain. May mix in a little bit of sleet here to the south, but that steady snow falling for you around Frankfort into Noblesville, Anderson, pretty much everywhere again that you look. We're right on that dividing line though around the city. Greenwood dealing with more in the way of some rain, possibly some freezing rain in there, so watch out for that as we go through the next few hours. But here's TrueCast. We see that rain snow snow line lifting a little more to the north, and by 11 o'clock, we actually see some drier air working in south of Interstate 70. So we may see a break in the precipitation before more of that snow fills in during the overnight. Again, about 1 to 2 inches along I-70, about 2 to 4 areas to the north. Temperatures right now around the freezing mark. As we get into tomorrow morning, we'll pretty much hold there, but notice as we go into the afternoon, our temperatures will actually start to fall as we will have a little bit of that freezing rain and wintry mix left over in the morning. Next few days of the forecast, frigid for Valentine's Day. We start off in the single digits, 18 for the high. We do start to warm up pretty quickly, though, 43 by Sunday. Chris?
Services like Uber and Lyft have revolutionized how Americans get around. But as Usher Qureshi found, they may not be solving all the problems that experts had hoped.
Ride-hailing apps burst onto the streets a decade ago, tapping idle cars and drivers to shuttle passengers around, the hope making it easier to live without owning a car and take some vehicles off the road.
A lot of people get rid of their cars since Uber and Lyft come along. So less car for people.
But while car ownership may have dipped, initial data suggests transportation network companies like Lyft and Uber are actually making traffic congestion worse, particularly in the nation's 9 largest cities.
It's a lot of traffic all the time with all the cars on the street. So it's like, you have to really plan ahead.
For drivers like Erica Wilson, who gets stuck in gridlock on her drives to and from work, ride-sharing is a double-edged sword.
It's making a way for people to earn extra cash. So, I'm kind of in between. I don't want the hustle and bustle, but I do like the opportunity that it offers.
After conducting their own study, Uber and Lyft recently acknowledged they are generating more traffic in major U.S. cities than was first admitted. In Washington, D.C., the rideshare companies make up 7.2% of all vehicle miles traveled. In Boston, 8%. And in San Francisco, it's more than 13%. Here in Chicago, taxi cab medallions or licenses are limited to 7,000. At the same time, there are no caps on rideshare drivers, which have topped more than 66,000.
The rideshare companies are so powerful. They have a lot of money.
David Adenican has driven a cab for 8 years. He says Uber and Lyft have decimated the taxi industry.
It's tough. It's very, very tough. It's tough because, like I told you earlier, that the profit has been eroded by 50%.
But Dr. P.S. Sriraj, a research associate professor who studies public transportation systems, says ride-sharing has helped increase mobility and provided commuter access to transportation in less urban areas.
Are they contributing to more congestion, more emissions, and more delays? Initial results seem to be indicating that is the case, especially during the peak periods.
Sriraj says the data, however, is still spotty, and it's too early to determine what caps, if any, could help regulate the impact. I'm Usher Qureshi.
Usher, thank you. Let's start the Now News feed. Today, Facebook saying it took action against those responsible for fake accounts in Iran, Russia, and Myanmar. Now, experts say it's an example of how Facebook's trying to do more to stop disinformation. Southwest is putting in new safety standards for its planes. A government investigation finding that Southwest did not comply with mandatory maintenance standards when putting 88 jets into its fleet. Well, the Australian government says 113 animal species are in need of urgent help after brush fires. The animals lost 30% of their habitat in the fires. The fires are estimated to have killed more than 1 billion animals. Well, February is Black History Month, and a Detroit woman is showcasing a unique exhibit. Asia Hamilton is a photographer, and she opened an exhibit that's called Hierarchy. Now, as soon as you walk in, you notice a black cloud of hair hanging over. Hamilton has a display of all the tools that her father used to style hair when he was a hairdresser. Now, other parts of the exhibit touches on some deep-rooted issues.
When we are wearing our natural hair, we're discriminated against. It's serious when it comes to laws having to be passed. It's serious when it comes to, having to be accepted. It's serious when, we're trying to uphold a specific beauty standard.
Hamilton hopes that people will walk away with a better understanding of issues surrounding black hair. Now, it is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which gave American women the right to vote. And to mark the centennial, the New York Philharmonic is premiering 19 new works by 19 female composers. The composers are women of all generations and ethnic backgrounds. Their common thread is powerful music and female empowerment.
One orchestra commissioning 19 women at the same time, that's history. It's not only history in the United States, it's history in the world.
Right now, less than 3% of music performed on the concert stage in the U.S. and Europe is written by women. Now, finally in our lineup today, here on the Now, credit card debt has hit a new record high. And there is one thing that is making us carry a balance that may surprise you. We're going to get advice from a woman who paid off more than $120,000 worth of debt.